Hi there, this is Atilla Yesilada presenting for Real Turkey channel, and today's topic is Turkish real estate, a subject on which I comment with extreme reluctance. What are we going to talk about? Let's look at a list of our topics here. Uh, is it time to buy? This question was motivated by persistent audience inquiries about the Turkish real estate market, and I shall do so because I'm a professional who, among other industries and Turkish macroeconomics, also constantly monitors and issues research on Turkish real estate market. The reason why I am so reluctant to do is because, as a matter of personality, I am extremely hesitant to give advice to anyone. I'm a guy who basically screwed up his own life, so I really have no life experiences to share or serve as an inspiration. I mean, I don't give love advice, I don't give health advice, and God forbid, I don't want to be seen as giving investment advice or that this channel is construed a medium through which investment advice is provided. With these caveats, though, as I've said, since it's such a hot topic, let me just adjust this. I'm going to talk about the Turkish real estate market. First of all, we need to understand a few basic concepts, such as real estate as an investment, as a store of wealth, versus real estate as a consumption durable, as a place to live in and enjoy its amenities for many years to come without really paying much attention as to whether you'll be able to flip it with a profit. Then I'm going to describe the conditions of the current market and two prevailing characteristics here. First of all, there is just an incredible amount of construction materials inflation, cost push inflation, which is driving up the cost of houses. And then a slightly lengthier segment where I will explain the buyer's side and how Mr. Erdogan's completely insane economic policies has created the perfect environment to invest into real estate. It is a boom. And as investors or professional researchers know, booms never last. The question is not whether they will last, but when to get out before they worst. Don't worry, after a few more caveats as to which regions are attractive, how your decision to buy a house depends on how you intend to use it and in which currency you keep your accounting, which regions are more popular than others, things that need to be in this kind of a video. I'm going to tell you, don't buy it, essentially. And then I'm going to tell you the reasons. I'm sorry. And finally, I'm going to give you the good news. I I think this is a great country to live in if you are a tourist or foreigner, not necessarily for Turks. And if you are patient, you can get great value from a real estate purchase within 6 months to at most a year. Okay, let's start with a basic definition of an investment good or investment asset versus a consumption asset good or a consumer durable. A lot of people buy houses with a view on selling them at a profit, just like they do with, stocks, bonds, crypto assets, golds, etc. For these people, house is an investment good. They intend to buy it, rent it until there is price appreciation, and when the price appreciation is higher than the rate of return they can get is lower when they can get, say, from you know, deposits or stocks or bonds. They flip it, they sell it. The second type of house buyers are people who intend to live in their dream house, newly married, newly divorced, newly discovered her or his sexual preferences, so has a new life partner. Hey, it's all the same to me, man. Um, but they really don't care about selling the house and making money out of it. but they're looking for a niche, sort of like a cave where they will feel comfortable. Different, you know, conditions apply to them. Um, for instance, my advice that you should not buy any real estate in Turkey at this current time is like 80% relevant for those who wish to do so for purposes of financial investment. If you are going to buy a house because you relocated to Turkey, you came for tourism and love the country and you want to have a piece of it, well, then there are more caveats. For instance, let's dispense with that immediately. You need to look at whether the house is fairly valued. The rule of thumb is that if you're buying a house anywhere, you should not be paying more than 12 years worth of rent. This is just obviously a very general rule. But if you are talking about Istanbul, where there is constant huge demand because of the influx of people from other cities, foreigners, which has potential to grow faster than the rest of the nation, you should probably be paying, you should probably won't hesitate to pay somewhere between 15 to 17, 18 times the annual rent of the place. Secondly, of course, there are credit conditions. I mean, if you are buying the house upfront cash, that's fine. But depending on your cost of getting a loan, it may make sense to buy the house right now. For instance, let's say you're a foreigner living in Turkey, but you have a Turkish bank account and you are, you can get a mortgage credit. This is such a screwed market that the cost of a mortgage credit, on average, regardless of credit score, is something like 30% per annum in TL terms. But inflation is something like 60% and likely to rise further. So essentially, you are getting a free loan, plus the bank is paying you interest on top of that in terms of spending power. Then I suppose you can buy a house. And in the sense that you may lose next year if you wish to sell it, but since that's not your purpose, you want to live there, say, for the foreseeable future, say 5, 10 years, there is a good prospect that you will recover your initial investment plus the things that you shall not be paying for, for instance, uh, rent. Uh, More importantly, I live in a gated community, which is a nice swimming pool. It has walkways. It's not crowded, etc., etc. All of these are actually the services that the house provides to you. Services you would have bought in return for cash or credit if it was not provided within the basket that's represented by the house. So I think if you consider those variables, hey, go ahead and buy. Then again, if you wait 6 months, maybe 9 months, if you're not that much of in that much of a hurry, you'll probably get a better price. You might be in a situation where you're paying rent. It's really excruciating, and you are thinking, well, instead of rent, I can get a cheap mortgage and then I can apply the rent towards the mortgage payments. As I've said, if you're buying a house to live in, this video is not 100% for you. It's just for people who are buying for the purpose of selling within a defined period of time. Certainly, attractiveness of real estate depends on location as well as on your neighbors. In some countries, the color of the neighborhood, its proximity to the cities, hundreds of considerations. But overall, currently, the popular areas in Turkey are Istanbul, and it shall always be popular because Istanbul is a very energetic city that happens to be not only the business hub of Turkey, but probably also the neighboring countries. So, you know, obviously, if there is a housing boom, Istanbul will also suffer from it, but much less so than other localities that had become popular simply because people want to buy houses. Other areas are the Aegean and Mediterranean coasts. A lot of people have discovered during the COVID epidemic that it's not worth being stuck in a house for 2 years when the next pandemic arrives. So, they are moving south. A few years ago, high rise apartments called residences in Turkey and buildings, apartments, flats that are close to the city center were more attractive than single dwellings with gardens, back in front yards. Now it's the other way around. People want to move away and live in a more dispersed environment. So villas, if you can afford them, or small gated communities with plenty of space between the housing units is probably a better choice. In terms of Istanbul, Izmir, Bursa, Ankara, or Antalya and Adana, Bodrum, not Bodrum, I'm sorry, Bodrum doesn't have a metro. Proximity to a metro station or, underground station is one of the main factors that emerge as enhancing the value of the house. You have to be extremely careful in Turkey because zoning requirements change very frequently and without any consultation with the people who are involved. Uh, Certainly, suddenly your area can be declared eminent domain. That's particularly the case if you are buying a second-hand house in a older district of the city. Obviously, if you are talking about Istanbul, Izmir, Bursa, or any of the major cities, you really want to buy a place that's close to your workplace or close to activities that you enjoy, because anyone who has been to Istanbul would confirm my viewpoint that traffic is a nightmare. I love this city, but I'm gonna get out of here as soon as possible simply because I don't want to get into a road rage and chortle, throttle someone. Okay, let me just show you the my introductory statement here and um, look at the fourth item, which it says why Atilla Yesilada, that's yours truly, will never invest in real estate or crypto assets for the simple reason that I only invest things that I fully comprehend, where I have a solid idea based in experience or fundamental theory that tells me where the price of that asset ought to go. Of course, you know, I may be mistaken more times than I am right, but at least I am making a judgment based on sound logic and the guidance of the theory or years of experience. And I don't understand real estate. It's a very segmented market. Essentially, no two houses are the same. No two neighborhoods are the same. So, if you want to buy a piece of Turkey, buy real estate trusts traded on the Istanbul Stock Exchange. They trade at a discount to actual houses they represent, and I think they're a good value. This is also why I would never invest into crypto assets, not because I think they are poor value, simply because I'm too old to understand what the heck they represent. Now let's move on to the macroeconomics of the housing market and try to motivate my advice at the very beginning of this video. Not the right time to buy, worst time to buy. Well, Mr. Erdogan's insane economic policies have created an economic environment with extreme perverse incentives and unsustainable interrelationships between main economic parameters. Let me give you an example. Both the Fed and the European Central Bank are thinking of tightening monetary policy because inflation is a problem and it's not going to go away within the next few years. And that's the job of central banks. In Turkey, even though inflation is completely out of control, no matter how you measure it, no matter whom you listen to, the policy rate is 14% versus actual rate of inflation of 50% and 2-year inflation expectations of roughly 18%. So there's a negative real interest rate, and Erdogan doesn't want to do anything about it. Erdogan also meddles with, free market economics so that really in certain industries or sectors, you are not allowed to raise your prices simply because that's considered inflationary. Uh, and there are a lot of issues like that, which result in the current circumstances. Turkish savers are abandoning Turkish financial markets at great haste because there is no way one can earn a decent real rate of interest on her money saved. There is really nowhere in the Turkish financial market where you have a reasonable, justifiable hope of making money in excess of the rate of inflation that's coming in the following months. In this situation, people who wish to preserve the value of their wealth go to real assets. They buy property, they buy houses, sometimes dozens of housing units. Uh, they start up a business. They buy stocks because they're sort of like quasi real assets. Poor people buy cars, even second-hand cars. Their prices have been hugely inflated too. So we have two factors here influencing the price of the housing. A, incredible amounts of inflation. Over the last 12 years, the construction cost index has risen by 90 percentage points, which obviously drives up the price of houses. Two, there is massive resource reallocation. People don't really care much about the value of the house, they're just looking for any safe harbor to preserve their wealth. As a result of this, I read it in a source today, but I think it's very close to official figures. Real estate prices on average rose by roughly 300 percentage points over the last 2 years. Look, fundamental principle of an investment. How do you make money? You make money when everyone else is panicking and dumping that asset to the market. In Turkey, you have exactly the opposite situation. People don't want to be in financial assets. They don't care about the intrinsic value of a house. They think it's going to preserve their wealth, so they buy houses. And on top of that, there are people we call momentum surfers, people who come into the market thinking just like everyone else, they're going to buy a house, sell it in the next 3 months, and make money. Finally, uh, the war in Ukraine, by the way, a call to the brave people of Ukraine. I truly empathize with your suffering and loss, and I'm all the way on your side. I don't want any country to be invaded by fascists for reasons that are not related to survival, and your losses are felt deeply by all the stakeholders in this channel, I believe. But the fact is, Russians and Ukrainians are buying property in Turkey. I don't think the numbers are too large to substantially affect the average price. But the fact is, you know, the hype is there. I mean, let's rush out and buy a house simply because Ukrainians are going to buy it before you and you can then turn over and sell it to them, presumably because Ukrainians are bigger fools. So, this is really the worst environment to buy a house. Now, there's another class of peoples about which I learned by watching American reality shows. These people are called flippers. They buy a house, renovated, or if it's a depleted, old, worn out house, they repair it and then they flip it in a few months with some profit. Now, that's a possibility in Turkey. I don't think it's going to be that profitable because transaction times are substantially longer in Turkey vis-a-vis the United States. But, you know, I think this housing boom has another 3, maybe 6 months to go. So what the heck? I mean, give it a chance. After all, flippers are risk takers. They know what are the risks involved. So why do I think? I think I've made my point quite succinctly that this is the worst time to buy real estate in Turkey. So why do I think better times are going to come? Well, simply because this strange edifice, the Turkish economy that Erdogan built thanks to his pipe dreams, is not sustainable. It's going to collapse or implode any minute. And that minute is going to be either this summer when tourists fail to appear and Turkish lira enters another catastrophic free fall, as it did in December of 2021. You can see my videos below about this currency crisis and how Turkey got out of it. So, if you are someone with dollars, euros, Finnish rupees, whatever, any kind of currency rather than Turkish lira, you would be better off because soon your currency will buy more Turkish liras and more of a unit of housing. The second date is the election date. It could be October 2022 or June 2023. It's not certain yet. When I am 100% sure that Mr. Erdogan will lose the presidency and his coalition, AKP and Nationalist MHP, will lose power in the parliament, in our Congress, and the opposition will come to power. The opposition, I have done several videos on what they intend to do, who they are, etc., etc. I mean, it's no beauty contest. Let's face it. It's a six-party coalition with somewhat diverse ideas on what to do with Turkey. But at the very least, they're going to adopt orthodox policies, which is they're going to raise rates. Uh, they're going to make credit less available. They're going to cut fiscal spending and maybe even cut a deal with IMF. The net result of that is going to be a massive rise in interest rates, which is always deleterious for housing prices. Also, in addition to interest rates, availability of credit is also an important concern. Right now, banks are just dying to push out loans to everyone for two reasons. A, the government wants them to. B, they do want to, avert inflation and make some kind of money on their deposits. Next year, it's going to be a completely different situation. People with cash, people with hard currency cash, will find much better bargains. And then, of course, you may ask the final question: buying cheap is not necessarily a good policy for making money on investments. Give me a prospect where buying cheap will end in selling more expensively. Well, again, I've done videos on that and I shall do more, but I think uh, opposition president, probably CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, as well as an opposition coalition in the parliament, will set Turkey right within a year or so. Obviously, there's going to be a recession while they undo the damage that Mr. Erdogan had caused so far, during which time housing market is going to be in a very deep slump or even panic. And then it will slowly recover. If you can catch the housing market at its trough or somewhere near the trough, then you can ride it all the way up to the zenith, which is probably, depending on conditions, a 3 to 7 year cycle. Okay, once again, my final word. This is not investment advice. If you want to buy any kind of real estate in Turkey, talk to a qualified and certified real estate agent. In fact, get a second opinion before you do anything silly. I want to thank you for watching this video and for all of your excellent and sometimes very hilarious comments at the bottom of the videos. And we'll see you in the next episode of Real Turkey Channel presented by Atilla Yesilada, who's saying goodbye from Istanbul.